Lua Pritchard, known to us as Lua Pritchard, but that's only after you can correctly pronounce her name will she let you call her Lua. You are the former executive director of the Korean Women's Association, and you are the current executive director of the Asia Pacific Cultural Center. Welcome, my dear.
Thank you.
Lua, family is important to you. Everybody who you meet, I swear, is your family. I mean, you will come into City Line and you've got 5 people with you, and I think, oh, she brought her sisters with her. And they're not related to you, but they feel like they're related to you. So let's talk about family in terms of how you view it and how it makes you what you are.
So I was born illegitimate.
Illegitimate.
Yes. I was born from a woman of 19 years old, the only daughter of a very high chief of a village who would stand and have zero tolerance for any mistakes. And so my biological dad was the son of a minister of the village. And he got kicked out. The minister got kicked out of the village because my mother's dad is very high-powered in the village. So the father I'm going to talk about tonight and all night is my maternal grandfather. He and my grandmother adopted me right from birth and named me Fadwaina Sema. Sema is my biological mother's name. So Fadwaina means second up to. So I became the sister of my own biological mother. That's how I got the name Fadwaina. Sema just dropped off throughout the years, but that's truly what happened. My father was a great father. He was a great provider. I, as a child, had everything I needed to eat, to clothe, because my father had the largest farm in the village and the district. He would fish from morning till noon every single day, and he knew how to do that well as well. When you're a farmer and you're a good fisherman, you have it made in the islands. And that's what made the money. And so I grew up as a business family child. So I had everything, I was spoiled. And so, but 5 years later from my birth, a brother of mine was born, also illegitimate. But to this day, my biological mother never told us who his father was, but I learned about who my father was later on. So when I grew up in the village, I was the bastard of the village. I would be called names because a lot of girls in my age and their mothers and their parents would be jealous because, you know, our family status, and then they said I was a pretty little girl and smart little girl, and so everything happened. When that happens and jealousy becomes, so I would hear the name calling often, and so I would often wonder why, because I didn't know what it meant. Until later on, as I could read between the lines, between the family talks and everything, I could figure out things. And then there were lots of in between coming over to visit from my biological father's side. And then there were fights and all that kind of stuff. But my biological father was very angry with my father. So he instead of going away with his father when he got kicked out of the village, he went, I don't know if he had a relationship, but he went and married a girl next door just so that he could walk back and forth and let my father see him every single day as his way of getting back, because they really wanted to get married, my biological parents, but couldn't happen because it was my biological mother was pregnant out of wedlock, so that any of that couldn't happen. But my father, who adopted me and raised me, my grandfather, he is my role model, still now. I still quote him because he was a leader. He was a strong man, and everybody knows when we talk about him, even now, all the people of Samoa that from the village, especially because they know him as a strong leader, a strong provider, and he means what he means. So growing up, my father used to tell me, honey, you stay smart as you are, and then when you grow up, I want you to go to America and marry a white boy. So, because white was rich, the blessings, the smarts, that was, we look to white people as that. So in fact, the translation of a white person, Caucasian, is papalangi, means burst, blessings burst from the heavens. That's what the white people translation is, palangi.
So Lua, did you do that?
So, in 10 years old, we came to America. We moved to San Francisco, South San Francisco. So we grew up there, but we stayed with my brother's house there until we were able to go to live in Hunters Point, which is where all the projects, the low-income projects were. So later on, I thought, we were rich in the islands, but when we came to America, we had to live the poverty. So in Hunters Point, my family as a Samoan family was probably 2 or 3 of the only light-skinned families in that whole neighborhood. Was all black. So for a long time, I lived with black people. So that's why I'm really attracted to black people, because I grew up, a lot of my younger life was all around black neighborhoods. So I graduated from Sir Francis Drake in Hunters Point, graduated from Pelton Junior High School in that area, went to Lowell High School because I felt like Lowell is one of those college preparatory schools where you had to be rich or smart to go there. So I felt like I had to get there, and then we had to move to Los Angeles. So I graduated from Carson High School. And I went to, I got full ride scholarship to Pepperdine University. So all my life I was a scholar. I can relate a lot with Carla's story. All my life I wanted to fight because I was a bastard. I wanted to fight to be better because I wanted to kill that word off my life. And I wanted to make sure that people would look at me for who I am instead of how I became on earth. But when I was 19 going to college, my first year, I got pregnant with a minister's son. And my father was doing the same thing, the reasons why I ended up that way, what he was doing to my own biological mother. But I broke the ice with him and he wanted me to let go and have an abortion because he didn't want anything, because my child's father was a minister's son, but wasn't in school or any of that kind of stuff. So long story short, I went through it all despite of what he thought we could do, but I ended up taking care of my father and mother and my brother, who's next to me, and my daughter, all by myself. But then followed because mom wanted to go die in Samoa. But I was still in Pepperdine, but I only had 1 semester and a half to go more. But I had to make a hard choice, leave my education or go home and take my mom to die, because I couldn't live with myself if she had died before we could do that. So we did that. So that's how I ended up in Samoa. And I went and got hired from the Department of Education to be an English teacher at Samoana High School. And then 6 months later, we did this big old presentation of high school seniors projects, and I didn't know my future husband was going to be in there. So he was there from another high school, leading from another high school, and he saw me and was interested. And then I found out later that there was a guy interested in me from Leone High School, and then I should meet him. But we were both, a few months later, we were both promoted up to the Department of Education to write curriculum. So he was from Leone, I was from Samoana, and then I knew he was coming. But one of my sister teachers said, "Hey, do you know that Dan Pritchard? All the teachers are after him." And I said, "Oh, really?" Because before I thought he was settled. I thought he was married because he looked settled. And I said, "Oh," and the competitive side of me came up and said, "Oh, okay, so watch me get him." And then 2 months later, we started dating, and then that teacher could never believe that. So we got married, 12 years in the Department of Education, had 4 more kids together, and in 1988, Christmas Day, we traveled to Washington State to take care of his parents, because both of my parents had died all those years that we were together at first with our marriage, because I made him promise that we have to take care of my parents. So the promise was we take care of my parents first, and then we'll take his next. So we came on 1988, Christmas Day, 26 luggages, and 5 children and a babysitter. And so 1 year later, so a few months later, then my husband got hired, but 1.5 years later, I started working at Korean Women's Association.
Oh my goodness. And
So
how many children do you have total?
I have 21 kids. So through my life here in Lakewood, I obtained 16 children that came to our house and stayed with us for most of their lives. And I would never change it for anything. I have 10 girls and 11 boys altogether, 5 of my own and 6 culturally adopted kids. Never asked the government for any pennies, never got them in any assistance, all from my paycheck from KWA at that time. So those are I raised them very young, and they're the ones who set up my programs and take down my programs. When I was at KWA, they never paid 1 penny for any moving expenses or setups. My children were the ones with my husband to do all that. And now they're doing it for Asia Pacific Culture Center. So,
Wow, what a legacy.
and now they're between the ages of 27 and 40. All of them. Only half of them are married. I have 34 grandchildren. Wow. And I just heard I have one coming yesterday.
So, yeah, let's give it up for Lua. You have passed on to your children the legacy of hope and patience. Who taught you that?
Hope and patience. I had to be patient to live with the father that I had. You had to be patient. And one thing also, the other that he taught me is that you never give up. And he also taught me, you fight all the way. And you do your very best, always. And don't ever be afraid of anything. So, but you know, when you go through life like that, you have to have a lot of patience. You have to have a lot of hope, because you come across people who have all kinds of different personalities. And you have to endure all of that. You know, life is, well, look, 21 kids. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? You know they can't all be the same. They're all different. So it's, and then also the work. You know, I spent 19 and a half years with Korean Women's Association. You have to understand the dynamics of that. You know, I'm building a building here at Asia Pacific Culture Center. You have to understand all of that. And so all the things that you go through in your life, you have to have a lot of patience, a lot of endurance, and a lot of hope. My life is all about hope, because I was born illegitimate. The minute I knew I was a bastard, and I knew that I was born that way, and I knew that my father, my grandfather who raised me, has zero tolerance for any mistakes like that, you have to have a lot of hope. You have to have a lot of hope. And my life is all about faith. My parents taught me to have faith. My parents taught me to know God, that He is the greatest and He's there for you. So I have God in my life. And when you have that in your life, you have peace, hope, and patience.
Fa'alua, thank you so very much.